So my previous career was one that I never expected to go into. I actually have an elementary education degree, but never really followed it. There's a long story as to why that is, but I ended up in the financial industry kind of right out of college in my 20s, and I was there until my 40s. So I spent 20 years in the financial services industry to some degree, the last 10 of which was in a very lucrative outside sales position. When I first entered that financial services industry, the goal was to make a lot of money, right? That was what I thought was going to make me happy. And so every move I made on a career path was to get to the ultimate end goal, which is where I was, this outside sales position, because I had a lot of autonomy. I was able to run my entire day. How much money I made, at least so I thought, was up to me and how hard I worked. And the potential there for high levels of income was very high. However, what I found out over those last 10 years in that position was why you're paid so well, because the lifestyle sucks.
So I have a 20-year background in marketing and advertising, one of those sort of fancy, lucrative job titles that looks good on a business card. And I had a really progressive career. I moved up the corporate ladder quickly and swiftly, and was very impressive and all those things. Concurrent to that, though, in addition to my full-time career in marketing and advertising, I worked in the fitness industry as well as a personal trainer and a group fitness instructor. And that was just an extension of an athletic career I'd had in high school. So when I graduated high school and went to university, I got out of sports, and then I had to find some other physical outlet. So I got into fitness, and I've been in fitness additionally for about 20 years as well. So two kind of concurrent career paths there.
My health crisis started at the height of the worst financial crisis we've seen since the Great Depression, this last credit crisis. It was an extraordinarily stressful time. You add to the fact that I was a single mom, traveling all the time, not sleeping well, and just terrified that I was going to lose my job. I was the sole financial support for my kids. And what I found was that lack of sleep was getting worse. I had developed these chronic sinus infections that I always had my whole life, by the way, which eventually led to a chronic cough that I couldn't shake for months. I was going through a bag of Hall's cough drops a day. I had chronic headaches, chronic anxiety, I couldn't sleep. Things were really hitting a fever pitch. What I didn't realize is the lifestyle I was leading and diet was a culprit. I found that out later.
So it's so funny because as a fitness professional that had come from an athletics background, I always did everything right. I've never been sedentary. I've never eaten junk food. I don't pig out at McDonald's. I don't eat processed foods. I was exercising every day, hours a day. I was burning a lot of calories. I was eating healthy whole grains, lean protein, chicken breast, steamed veggies, dismal lumps of brown rice 6 times a day, 8 times a day. I was doing it all right. And I remember the moment when I realized that wasn't working was when I got back from a vacation, a beach vacation with my sister, and we were looking through the pictures, and she showed me this picture of this sort of heavy-set girl sitting on the beach lounger. And I said, "Why'd you take a picture of this stranger? Who's this person?" And she said, "That's you." But I was like, there's no way that's me. There's no way I look like that. And that was sad for me. It was heartbreaking, obviously. That wasn't even the worst of it, because in that moment in time, I was experiencing such unmanageable energy levels. So I'm working my full-time fancy marketing director career, and I couldn't stay awake in a meeting in an afternoon. My energy would just tank dramatically to the point where I could barely function professionally. I could barely function physically. I had to go and take a nap in my car in the parking lot throughout the day just to get through the day. When I was teaching fitness classes, I'd have to be drinking orange juice the entire time, like actually fueling my cells with glucose in real time because I was so insulin resistant. I didn't know this at the time.
So actually, when I went Primal, I didn't know it was Primal. I was working with a naturopathic physician. This was my last ditch effort because I'd seen so many normal conventional MDs, all of which basically just gave me a drug that was going to help me with my symptoms. Not one of them ever had a conversation with me about finding the root of the problem. It was, oh, you have a sinus infection. Oh, you have pneumonia. Oh, you have inflammation. I was on antibiotics. I was on prednisone. I was on allergy medicines. I was on prescription pain medications, prescription cough medicines. At one point, an MD finally just said, "Laura, you need to chill the hell out." And he wanted to put me on an anti-anxiety medicine. Well, of course I was anxious. I was feeling horrible, right? So, but I was desperate. I tried it and realized, okay, whatever that fixes was not my problem. And it wasn't until a client of mine referred me to this naturopathic physician. And he was the one who spoke to me in terms that I understood, well, your immune system is completely shot. Your adrenal glands are overloaded because of the stress you're under. And he basically talked to me about the root of the problem, inflammation. One of the ways we're going to try to reverse that is by doing an elimination diet. We're going to get rid of some common triggers. So that's where I started. And I basically was just eating meat and vegetables and healthy fats, right? We didn't call it anything. It took about 6 weeks for me to really get better. But oh my gosh, right? I take that all day long and not have medication. And it was when I was trying to add foods back in that I realized what some of those trigger foods really were. And it wasn't until I was out on the internet looking for recipes that omitted some of the foods I was no longer eating that I kept finding paleo this, primal that, ancestral health this. And suddenly the way I was eating and everything just sort of came into view. Everything was so much clearer. Mark's book, I think, was the first book I read, but I read every book I could get my hands on that related to the ancestral health movement. I read Rob Wolf's book. I read that tome, that Weston A. Price, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, read it cover to cover like it was a romance novel or something, you know? And that's where the education started. That's when I started to get angry. That here I was trying to live a healthy lifestyle. I was exercising regularly. I was eating a healthy, low-fat, whole grain diet. And all that great advice is what made me sick, what made it worse. And I was mad.
So that's why I went to the doctor. I know I went to a Western doctor. I didn't go to a naturopath. I went to my old Western doctor that I got to see for 7 minutes every year. And usually I'd go in there and it'd be kind of medically boring. I'd have nothing to say because I was this fit, healthy person. This year I went in and she noted that I'd gained a lot of weight in the last year. In the last year I gained enough weight that she was like, actually had to look at my chart and acknowledge it for the first time ever. And I said, yeah, that, and I have these other health concerns, and I listed out what they were, my energy levels. I was having some heart palpitations and other weird symptoms that just were incongruent with this healthy lifestyle I've been living. So kudos to my Western doctor because she actually planted a seed that was a little outside of the box at the time, and this was 7 years ago. She said, well, it sounds to me like you're pre-diabetic. And I was like, what now? What now? What's pre-diabetic? She's like, well, basically you're about to become type 2 diabetic. And I said, no, I reject that diagnosis. That is not happening. She talked also about the stress of my job, how cortisol comes into play. You know, she mentioned insulin, she mentioned cortisol. It got my wheels turning. This was sort of a revelation for me. Like, wow, my lifestyle is actually impacting my health. I started reading about insulin and cortisol, finding some books on them. It got me thinking about like what's a human supposed to eat? So I came to this question organically, and I Googled the caveman diet, just on a lark, and then paleo pops up and primal pops up, and I'm like, what's this now? And that's how I got started, and I just did it. Everything in those beliefs made so much sense to me. They were so logical. I implemented the changes right away. Ditched the grains, ditched the dairy, started bringing my carbohydrate down, switching my fuel source to fat. It completely changed the game. And within weeks, I had already lost a good amount of the water weight around my abdomen, but my energy was, I can't even describe it.
And so that's when I started my blog, Mom Gone Paleo, and that's when I decided I wanted to help others. And that's when I got my first health coaching certificate. This course didn't exist. I went to another program, paid more than 3 times what our students pay to get into this course. And I was not even halfway there by the time I graduated with what I wanted to be able to do. I think it had to have been at least a year later when I got the email that they were launching the Primal Blueprint Expert Certification. I bought it, I think, at midnight. When the email came through, I bought it immediately and got it started as soon as I can. It just took me a long time to finish it. But the minute I saw it, I knew that was going to be my next step.
So like a lot of primal peeps, I became very evangelical about primal and wanted to tell everybody that they could feel better if they just did this. All you got to do is make these changes to which seem really big, but they're actually not. Once you get over the hump, they're not. And I was trying to get the word out to anybody who would listen, and I guess I was being annoying. So I thought to myself, what I really need is a credential. I'm so passionate about this, and I'm seeing people everywhere in the world now that I feel like that just need this knowledge, that are just lacking this knowledge. So I decided I need to go get a nutrition credential, just so that I had some credibility to maybe someday start a little side business doing this. I researched a few different credentials. I didn't want to become a dietitian for obvious reasons. Plus, I was like 36 years old, not ready to go back to school for a 4-year degree. I found a nutrition credential that exists in Canada that's it's well recognized. It's a registered holistic nutrition credential. So it's registered but not regulated. So it gives you a little bit of that credibility, but it's not regulated by Health Canada, which would be like the guys who make the food pyramid up north of the border. I went through this schooling. It was a full-time year-long diploma. Well, what was really lacking when I finally graduated, it was like, well, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to start a business. I mean, I know my stuff. I've got the letters after my name, but I'm like, I'm stymied. I'm like, now what? When the Primal Blueprint Expert Certification Program came out, I threw my credit card at it right away too. I didn't open it for a year. I just didn't have time. I was so busy. It was when the email came out announcing they had changed the program. Now it was called the Primal Health Coach program. They'd added coaching modules, like coaching training to the program, is when the sort of flag went up. And I said, that's what I'm missing. I'm missing coaching. And it gave me exactly the tools I needed to build a business and learn how to coach humans through massive wholesale lifestyle change. That is not a small feat. You need some kind of understanding of human connection to be able to do that successfully.
First, I knew I wanted to make the transition out of certainly my current position, job, way too stressful. I knew that I could not just quit and make this a career. I didn't have a platform, right? But I knew, again, that I wanted to take the step. The first step was the credential. The next step was building an audience. So what I developed was a little bit of an exit strategy, but it was open. I had steps that I wanted to do, things I wanted to achieve, and I was going to see what opportunities presented themselves along the way. I knew at some point, if I made it my intention and I made it my focus, at some point an opportunity was going to present itself. So the first step was the blog, and created a local following. I had friends and family that wanted advice and help, and I was doing things very casually. I decided any money I made from doing this was going to go into what I called my runway fund. And that runway fund was eventually going to be what subsidized my living expenses until the health coaching was paying for everything. So I started down that path and saving money. I also was looking for another platform opportunity. So what did that look like, and how is that going to be? I didn't really know yet. I did join a CrossFit gym though. Happened to be my now brother-in-law's CrossFit gym. It was 2 miles away from my house. It's there that I met my husband, Brad. I'm the luckiest woman in the world, but I'm kind of a cliche. He's 9 years younger than me, never had any kids. I'm like the woman that joins a gym and marries her trainer, but it is what it is. So we got married, and we decided, for various reasons, to open our own gym. Ta-da! This was my next step in my exit strategy. This gym was going to be my platform. My husband was basically going to work like a dog for free until the gym got up and running. We were producing some cash flow. We had some income, and then we'd see where we were as far as what I had saved and so on. The gym opened. It's going well. And I was loving this. It wasn't paying all of our bills yet, but I was loving this. The career I was in was slowly becoming less important. I didn't really want to be there anymore, and that was becoming clear. I was talking to Brad, and we really just sort of made a decision. Okay, if we can keep our expenses to this is what we need to make in order to just pay our bills. Can we get there? Do we have enough in savings? Is the gym producing enough? I talked to my boss, and I just said, look, it's not fair for me to stay here. My heart's not in it. The company really needs somebody else who's going to push their agenda, because that's not really what I want to do anymore. So that's when I finally said, okay, we've got 6 months. And I quit, and I piled all my efforts into the gym and trying to drum up a health coaching business. And that's when I realized it takes a little more than 6 months to go from 0 to $6,000 to $8,000 a month to support a family of 6 in Chicago. So we knew something was going to have to augment that income as we got about 4 months into it, and that's when I continued to look for another leverage point. We knew we needed some more income, and I was talking with my naturopathic physician, that man that actually helped me get better. And he and I were in the midst of actually building some sort of partnership. We just weren't sure what that was going to look like, but this was going to be my leverage point. I had my gym, and I had him. We were going to build materials together and get going.
I wish I could say that I took a leap, but I tiptoed out of it, backtracked back into it, took a few steps out, took a few steps back. As I was completing my first nutrition credential, I was also really coming to a very stressful period of time with this advertising agency I was working at, and I didn't have a plan. I was sitting in my office being burdened by stress, and I got out of my chair, and I walked very calmly to my boss's office and said, I think I'm going to have to leave this job. She said, okay, are you putting your notice? And I said, no, I'm not, but I want to. I hemmed and hawed. I went back into her office several times and said, I changed my mind. I'm going to stay. I was just having a bad day. And then I would go back a couple weeks later and say, no, it's just not feeling right. And she was really good. She was kind of coaching me, honestly, through it. She said, just be real with yourself. Like, is it you don't want to be here in this agency, or is it you want to be somewhere else? And I said, it's the latter. It's not that I don't like this job, although I didn't. Let's be real. It was wearing me down quickly. But I wanted to be somewhere else. My heart really was somewhere else. So ultimately, I gave 6 months notice, which don't ever do that. I finished my nutrition credential, and then I left. And then I picked up some contracts, some marketing, business development contracts that could float my household income that were also in the health and wellness space. So I went to work for a smoothie company, helping them build some new smoothies. And I went to work for a little cafe that wanted to revamp their menu and have some fresh food options. So those were good opportunities for me to just, again, tiptoe out. But while you're doing that, you're not building a health coaching business. So as much as my story isn't really dramatic or triumphant, what ended up really getting me out of my comfort zone was my first client. Then I could take the leap. So I had to build it first and then take the leap. But in the back of my mind, I knew that a leap was going to happen. And it's such a cliche, but you have to leap.
And then all of a sudden, I got the email from Primal Blueprint Expert that they were going to be expanding this course. What were they looking for? Someone that had experience in ancestral health, that was already an expert if possible, but had this sort of consultative sales relationship building experience. And I thought to myself, check, check, check. So I applied. I didn't know if I was going to get the job, and I wasn't sure it's what I wanted. When I got the offer is when I sat down with my husband and I realized, is the opportunity with that naturopathic physician that opportunity, that leverage point I'm looking for? Maybe, right? Or is this opportunity with the Primal Health Coach that amazing opportunity? Not only does it get me engaged with a company that kind of helped save my life, but now I can help more people. The email came out searching for somebody to come join the Primal Health Coach team as an employee, and I read the job posting as well, and I was like, okay, some fitness background, some business background, primal, knowledge and nutrition background. The one check I couldn't check off was the sales background. I didn't have a sales background, although marketing and sales, sometimes you can kind of massage that into being similar. It's really not, but I threw my resume at it anyway. I didn't get the job, and I was kind of like, oh well, that's too bad. But kudos to whoever got it, who I now know is Laura. And I continued on building my nutrition consulting business. So a few months after that, I got an email from sort of the head guy at Primal Health Coach, our boss, Aaron. I had another opportunity available, and my resume had been one that had bubbled up toward the surface, and would I be interested in an interview with him and Mark. The job created was one supporting students and grads, which was something that was really special to me, because I had gone through a whole big nutrition credential. I had gone through a long, slow career change, and I knew how hard that was. Even while I was in school, I was saying to myself, I don't think one-on-one client coaching is my zone of genius. But I always, in the back of my mind, was like, I just want a broader outreach. I want to be able to influence more people to greater change.
And so this opportunity was exactly that. Now I am helping to grow and coach coaches who can go out and be the little foot soldiers spreading the primal wisdom that we all know now, making people feel better, healthier, happier.
Say, looking back, lessons learned, what advice would I give to myself? First of all, you have to be willing to take the first step, commit to that, but also commit to being willing to take the second step, even if you don't know what that is. The other thing I would mention is to not give up. I mean, we had roadblocks, things that had me second guessing whether this is what I should do. Is it going to be too hard? Should I go back to what's safe and what I know and what I'm good at and I know pays me well? Or do I have the courage to continue down this path? And time again, I kept being drawn here. And I learned that in order to really make this step, you have to be willing to fail or let failure not be an option, right? You've got to remove the safety net. You've got to remove the security blanket to really achieve that goal. It's scary, but that's okay. It's also thrilling.
There's so many different kinds of people in the world, right? We're not all perfectly organized people who have spreadsheets and action plans, and I'm not one of those people. I really am one of those sort of right brain, head in the clouds type people that kind of follows shiny things, and that's okay. So for people like me to say, make a plan, take steps, do this, that doesn't necessarily always work. You kind of have to just tap back into the authentic self. Don't be too calculated of a risk taker, because even if you take a risk that's aligned authentically with your authentic self, the universe does take care of you. Okay, so if you're not sure if you can do it, if you can make a career out of it, the thing I tell every coach that I talk to is the clients are out there. Just like you were out there, you wanted the change, you went through the change of primal living, we all did. There's clients out there who've never heard of it, who have no idea how much better they can feel, and they're willing to pay. And they don't care if your credential is fancy, recognized by the government. They don't care. They don't feel well. They want to feel better. You have the tools. We're going to teach you how to coach people. They're out there. You can build a business.
So the one thing that I would say to anybody that asked me if there's anything I would do differently, the number one thing would be, now that I'm on the other side, and I know it's on this other side, is I wish I had done it sooner.
Don't feel like you're foolish or silly for wanting to chase a shiny thing.